Hi, I'm Dave, and I'm the technical advisor at Lodi UK.
Hi, I'm Richard, and I'm a third-generation farmer here at Castle Farm. We farm about 500 acres, and I farm with two brothers, and we're a real family farm, traditional mixed Warwickshire farm.
Hi, I'm Bizza. I am Richard's daughter. I live and help here on the farm. As Dad said, we're a third generation mixed family farm, predominantly sheep, a bit of arable and some diversification too.
Yeah, very, very interesting on that point then. Because we're a family farm here and we've diversified a lot.
Yeah.
We have different, we have a commercial ship, we have fishing pools, we do accommodation, which is just over there.
Yeah.
And again, we have to control the rats up there. But we also have a small feed business, as I mentioned earlier. And the feed business is UFAS, Universal Feed Assurance Scheme. And the reason why it has to have a UFAS certificate is because people with FABL have to buy off UFAS. So it's a circle, the whole thing's a circle that goes round. So I stand to be corrected. We have to check the feed store at least once a month. So it is 12 visits a year to have the UFAS certificate.
Probably is,
But you check it, or the pest control
No. We have to have a certified guy comes out and checks it, because when they come to audit for our UFAS, they need to look at all the paperwork from the pest control side to make sure that we are ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, and I bet there'll be store product pest as well in there, won't there?
Yes,
so grain weevils and the likes, you'll have to have some trap set and stuff to monitor those numbers and check you're not infested with grain weevil or whatever else.
We don't manufacture feed, so that gets rid of a lot of certificates straight away. All the feed comes bagged and sealed. As well,
so
which helps a lot.
Yeah, that wouldn't be so bad. But you'd have to have some sort of pest control system in place.
Yeah, it has to be to get
for mice and rats. Yeah.
You lead off with that one, Bizza.
Common pests found here, I would say, are rats. We do have a problem with rats, don't we?
Yes.
Whether it's in game cover, we've got poults that we put down for shooting in the winter, chickens as well, so lots of rats around there. Flies are a big problem, obviously with sheep. Fly strike is a real issue, especially at this time of year. What else would you say?
Yeah, that's a good point, because I just wanted to make sure that you have been listening for the last 25 years of your life. Our flies are a big problem. We have a lot of sheep, and obviously we get fly strike, which is starting about now. And obviously the wool's still on the sheep, so that presents a problem. And of course, rats are a huge problem with our feed business that we run. They do get in the feed stores. With our commercial shoot, they do get around the game covers, particularly around the maize, which I think Dave might know a bit about that. And we have a problem with rats around the maize eating all the wheat out the feeders.
Yeah, the rules and regulations have changed massively in the last 2 years, really. So your standard baits that you'll be used to, your brodifacoum baits, your bromodiolane baits, they're non-outdoor baits now, have to be indoors in their own buildings. So cholecalciferol baits in the harmonics is fully licensed to go around game covers and stuff and be placed down burrows.
When you say fully licensed, do you mean that you have to supply them, we can't go and buy them off the shelf?
As long as you're trained or currently under a farm assurance scheme, you'll be able to buy. Come January, the rules are changing again.
Right,
so then you'll have to be trained to a standard, to a training course, and be part of a CPD thing then to keep your points up over the next, I think it's 5 years.
Wow. So they're clamping down quite hard on it.
Yeah, so you're not going to be able to put bait out. There is powers to be that will be checking this. Quite how the farm assurance auditors will be involved, we don't really know yet. They're sure to be involved, checking whether we're doing everything right. But yeah, from a control point of view, the harmonics bait will work very well around your game covers and stuff, because you've got the burrow baiting option. You can place it down the burrows, cover the burrows over, and then feed them at home. Probably the best way of getting on top of them. You haven't really got any other option.
Sorry, Dave, just come in there. You mentioned CPD, so does that also apply if we're going to start administering fly control on sheep?
No, totally
will
separate.
That come eventually?
I don't think it's far away. I think everything like that will end up getting tighter. What we're allowed to do, what we're not allowed to do. we do live in a world where we are told what we can and can't do, as opposed to making our own judgments on it. But that's probably for another conversation, another day. But yeah.
And just very quickly, have you got any control for ramblers?
Yeah, that's again joking. We laugh about it, but we have got a lot of them. They've got a right to roam. They can go over places, and they do go off piste, shall we say, on where they're meant to be. And if you are placing baits and poisons and sprays and everything else, there's going to come more and more. We've got a duty of care to try and eliminate them coming to harm. So I know you don't really think that someone's going to go and dig up bait out of a hole. No, then probably not. But their dog that they've got walking with them definitely isn't sticking to the path or the right of way or whatever they're walking on. That's veering off everywhere. So then that becomes a problem. And if their dog gets home, becomes ill from ingesting poison, that's where problems knock on. So yeah.
As regards pest control, particularly down the stables, there's a problem, isn't there?
There is.
Wherever there's feed, there's pests.
Yeah.
Even in steel bins, I'm sure that you probably sell it at your place.
Yeah. I think how it should operate could operate on farm is identifying when you've got a problem. If you know you've got a problem, you really need to deal with it.
Yes. Yeah.
It's only going to get worse. Very rare does a pest problem solve itself. You know, they just don't die. They just keep living and keep breeding. It'll only get worse. And I think identifying that, whether that comes you feeding back to someone to get it done, or you go direct to the pest controller to say, look, I've got a problem here. I've seen a rat. We need to deal with it. It doesn't really matter, but that sort of dialogue between staff, between family members, back to someone that's going to deal with it is key. We see it, you know. Farm manager will be on the phone going, I've seen this. The owner will be on the phone. Someone will be on the phone saying they've seen a rat and deal with it. I think it's the same on the farm. Same with a slug. It could be anything, couldn't it? Whenever that pest is growing, generally speaking, it won't sort itself out. You have to intervene.
We haven't hit on chickens, poultry. And a lot of people have a few chickens in the backyard. We've got some down here. And yes, massive problem with rats. Anywhere there's food, especially if it's exposed and it's open.
I think the two things that have grown rat numbers on households really is decking and feeding the birds.
Yes.
Because as soon as you feed the birds, you put food. Everyone loves to put a piece of decking out the front of their house, which is a void underneath. The rat moves in underneath, and then they have a barbecue on the front of it and a bit of spilt food. He's living quite happily under there. And chickens. You know, the backyard, 6 chickens in your back garden has massively upped the numbers of rats in households and gardens.
Yeah.
I would say flies, with fly strike on the sheep. Because of the changing seasons and it's getting warmer earlier and later, we're having milder autumns, aren't we?
Yeah.
Fly strike would normally, well, you can say back in your day when the season that you would find it. But for me, I found it in my sheep as late as October time. I remember I had a tup and it was on him and I was absolutely mortified. But it's because we're having milder, wetter autumns. So the season for fly strike seems to be longer. What was it like when you were my age?
Well, when I were a lad.
Yeah.
In those days, we used to dip the sheep, and they would be dipped twice a year. And there's a lot of sheep scab about, so we had to. But some of the dips we were using, as Dave will probably hit on in a minute, weren't very pleasant. The OPs we used to use, still not.
No,
still not.
but we don't dip anymore.
Well, people still do dip.
But here we don't dip.
We don't dip. We've been using porons. Various.
Your scab control then, how are you finding that without dipping?
We don't have a problem with scab. Touch wood, yeah. But any sheep that are bought, we send them to another farm, or the replacement days when they come in, they go to another farm in a quarantine situation for say 3 months. For that reason, obviously there's a problem with foot control, with foot rot and also with scab.
Which is a very good way of doing it, because if you're going in and out of markets all the time, buying in stores and all the other sheep coming in,
I mean, if you're breeding your own replacements, you're a closed flock and it's more controlled. But nothing comes back to the farm, does it? When you buy from the market.
But I think when you say about seasons, that's affecting everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
That doesn't matter whether it's fly strike on sheep, whether it's rats and mice, crops that we're trying to grow, all sorts of things. is having an effect. And whether you get very political, whether it's climate change or what it is, but definitely the seasons are changing.
Yes.
And we're getting this unbelievably warm spring we've just had. We could get an unbelievably wet autumn. We don't really know, do we? But it's liable to be an extreme. And when these extremes happen, they either favour something or hinder something, don't they? And I personally think that we have to be at the top of our game. Rat numbers are growing, fly strike numbers are growing. Dairy farms we're dealing with are struggling with flies, biting flies, stable flies on cows. They're struggling like mad with them. You're struggling in sheep, I think it's...
Another point in there, David, is we've got blue tongue coming over because it's changed and it's been blown across. So yes, it's definitely noticeable.
I agree. There's a lot of things out there that can cause a lot of problems, and we're all trying to, so Deltanil and all the other pour-ons for dairy cows, they've been putting them on since middle end of March because they've been seeing a problem this year. They're trying to go earlier and earlier and earlier, and still going later and later and later, like you're saying with the tup. It shouldn't really have fly strike on it in October. It shouldn't really happen.
No, it shouldn't.
We have to look at seasons, and you will not be able to tell summer and winter apart from the 4 seasons apart from the fall of the leaves and the growing of the leaves, because all seasons will amalgamate into one, because these seasons are becoming less. When did we last have a notifiable spring where we said this is spring showers, this is spring weather, a nice summer, move into autumn, and then we get some frosts in winter. We've almost had as many frosts in April because it was very cold. We've had some -1s and 2s in early spring, didn't we? April time, and we probably had less than that in the blinking winter, didn't we? When it was actually meant to be freezing.
But interesting, when you get a dry time like we're having now, and they were saying this is the driest summer since 1961, or dry spring since 1961. But I can remember I was born just after that, and in 1963 we had the hardest winter, one of the hardest winters on record. But the point I was going to make was, when you get a dry time like this, fly strike, believe it or not, isn't so bad because you get less grass, so the ewes aren't so mucky.
Yeah, they're cleaner.
They're cleaner on the back end, so you don't get the dags, so you do get flies. And another interesting point on this farm here, just we call them the backfields over here. There's some houses at the back there with their dustbins, and we always get fly strike.
Yeah, it's the worst field for it, isn't
because
it?
the flies are on the dustbins.
Yeah.
You get the big blue
bottle flies.
Bottle flies.
Yeah, some other work we do is in waste transfer stations. Oh my lord.
Yeah. There is a difference though. There's something to say about that.
It's the worst field for it.
Yes.
Over there, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah. The once you give a fly or a rat or whatever a place to breed or an environment to excel in, it will, and it knows how to exploit it. And I think the seasons do. You common housefly in poultry units, for instance, has been a little bit of a slow starter because we've had colder nights. But once it gets going, it will make up for lost ground. And I think it's the same for, your fly striking sheep. Yeah, you might say it's not quite so bad now because we've got a little bit of less grass, but there will come some rain. There will come some flush of grass, and you could find in November you're getting your worst fly strike because they've got a bit mucky, and you probably let your guard down a little bit, and bang, it goes out. So.
I'm your biggest pest, aren't I? You said that earlier.
Well, no, actually, no. How do we work together? Well, when we're lambing, for example, as you get a bit longer in the tooth, you can't catch the sheep. Young legs here, you can go around, you can catch them. And also, you've got smaller hands for lambing or all that sort of stuff. We actually have a managed pest control system on the farm. Many years ago, Stratford District Council offered it for their environmental health department, and the rat man, as we called him, would come out, and we paid so much money a year, and he came out, I think it's twice a month. Very strict. We had to keep a book and everything, and rat baiting stations and all the rest of it. Well, of course, cuts came along, and they got rid of that. So a very nice young man who was qualified, worked for them, has now set his own business up, and he comes out to us, doesn't he?
He does.
But he's only coming out 6 times a year, once every other month, I think it is now. That's about all it is. An extra, you have to pay extra for it. It's not cheap, but is it cheaper just to let the rats run?
I think modern day grain stores, you should be able to keep them rat free internally.
Yes.
Checking the door strips on the bottom, whether all the shutter doors, however your doors are working, as long as they're tightly done, and check for any chew marks or anything, you'll soon know if a rat's trying to get into it.
We have very high standards in this country, and then they're allowing grain to come in from abroad, where the standards are totally different.
Totally, yeah. And there could well be, there's no
no
rules on how rodenticides are placed over there, what's gone on it, what has happened to it, you know.
And I didn't realise actually, but you're only so many yards from a rat. Is that a fact that, you know, particularly in towns and cities?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Birmingham just lately, I don't think I think one would be on your lap, I should think. It was pretty horrific. But
we assume that pests are in the countryside, but they're not.
No.
I mean, cities are overrun with them.
Mice, I think, in a city is a big problem.
Yeah.
I don't think there'd be many sort of hotels, food chains in cities that haven't got mice trouble.
And do you work with them to help, or are you purely farming in countryside?
Purely farm, yeah. We dedicated the business, and everything I do is to farm. But I think they have got a lot of, and that is serious behavioural resistance. There is an amount of sort of active resistance, but the bulk of it is behavioural. So yeah, they really do struggle to control them. But none of us want an incontinent animal running all over tables and work surfaces and everything else, do we? Because that's what you've got, and that's why you don't want it. And I don't think if we knew what was going on in some of these restaurants and stuff, we'd go mad, wouldn't we? But
and cockroaches, another problem.
Oh yeah, but again, they love it, don't they? And we all love, you know, how many eatery places are there now? We all love the old sort of drinking pubs gone, all serving food, aren't they? So they've all got rubbish outside.
Are you allowed to go to the pub?
Not really, no.
No. It's not being easy. Yes, another avenue of pleasure being cut off.
And you've got a violin.
You mentioned to me earlier, Bizza, about how do we decide what we're going to buy, pest control. And I think most farmers actually, the first thing they look at is the price.
Price, yeah.
And that's not always the most efficient way of doing it. No. But we certainly do look at the price, but it's the most effective way of controlling the pest.
Well, if you buy cheap, you buy twice.
Yes, you do, absolutely.
But I think then it's all right spending your money, but then I think I'm probably in that middle era, being in my mid-40s, that social media and the internet hadn't really took off when I was young. But then the younger people really do embrace social media and the internet and stuff. And I think it is our job really to get the information out there, because some of these products are not cheap, but you might think, oh, it's the more expensive one, it's got to be the best.
But if you don't know how to use it properly.
Exactly. It could actually be the worst one you've ever bought, and you've totally wasted your money, and you really go home going, I'm really annoyed with this because I've spent all this money and it hasn't worked. And generally it's down to how I used it. And I think the sort of social media stuff and getting little videos and stuff, how to use stuff and get the best out of it is key. Yes, you could buy a bag of bait for 20 quid or whatever, and you could buy a bag for 80 quid. There is a difference, and there's a difference how you use it. The same with the trap, the same with anything really. And it's how to use it to get the best out of it is definitely the key. And I think that's where you get the value for money out of it. You need to sort of be, the rules are changing, the labels are changing, and they don't like bait down for any more than 28 days. So that would where he would fall short, if I'm honest, there.
And he would have to come out and change that bait. He can't leave the product with us.
Yeah, this is where again it's all going to change come January, because if you're under a farm assurance scheme, technically you can buy professional baits, so you can touch those baits, you can pick those baits up, move those baits. Come January, technically speaking, you won't be allowed to touch them unless you're trained or under part of the CPD scheme.
So you say trained. Do we have to have a qualification, a certificate?
Yeah. So technically, you'll be as trained as we are.
So who trains us?
Lodi UK can take up the Lodi UK.
Would you edit that? I'm finding it right now. Sorry.
can deliver the training courses, some of which are online, some of which are in person. If I'm honest, I prefer the in person.
Yes.
I think you're getting more out of it as the farmer. Then you have to enrol in a CPD scheme, which will keep you points, a bit like your sprayer licenses and stuff like that, where you just go and enrol on it and do some learning and pick up some bits. But it will change. It's keeping on changing. How we're putting bait down. We don't bait like we used to. Back in my earlier days, we would bait permanently. There'd be bait down safely, but permanently. That's not happening now. We can't really do that. Yes, technically, I suppose, if you do all your risk assessments and can prove that you're keeping on being reinfested, but the reason being is you've got to look at why you're being reinfested. You can't just say I'm being reinfested all the time, so I've got to put bait down all the time. If you're not, take your pheasant shoot. If you look at your farm and your farm buildings and you go, right, okay, I keep getting reinfested, so I've got to permanently bait this, but I'm not controlling my rats in a pheasant pen or a feeder that's 200 metres away from the farm, and they're breeding like anything there and then moving up to the farm all the time. You've got to ask yourself the question of, do I need to be baiting here permanently, or can I control the rats at my pheasant pens to stop me having to bait 365? And I think that's where people need to be.
So finding almost the source of it and where they're coming
from. Definitely is the better way of doing it. Some farms they've got water courses by them and stuff like that. Yeah, they can get invested, but you don't need to bait the whole farm. You know, you can bait certain areas of the farm, which will give you control without permanent baiting across the whole farm, if you see what I mean. It doesn't give you the God-given right to chuck bait wherever you want still, but it will give you an ability to bait a side of the farm or against something. Like sometimes you haven't got control over your neighbour. Your neighbour might be the one that's got a lot of rats on it. You can't control what they do. They can have a lot of rats if they want, you know, it's the world we live in. So then you need to be permanent baiting. You can probably go and have a word with him and say, look, I'm killing a lot of your rats here, but you know, you have to be a bit sensible with it all.
And you talk about ingesting poison. There's a big problem also with wildlife birds, particularly birds of prey that are protected. We've got a lot of kites around here, a lot of buzzards. And if they're going to eat a rat that's ingested poison, that can be a problem. Yeah,
it can with your standard second generation baits. Your cholecalciferol doesn't work like that. So that works with a stop feed effect, so they will not OD. What happens with your standard baits, your brodifaciums especially, because they won't die for 3 or 4 days, they keep eating for 2 or 3 days. They will, because a single feed, they will ingest enough bait within 1 feed in theory, but say it took them 2, they might feed another 5 or 6, 7 or 8 or 10 times before they feel ill that they don't eat anymore. So now all of a sudden they could be 6 or 8 times lethal dose. That's when it will poison red kites, buzzards, owls, everything else that can feed off them. So that's where the harmonics come around for the cholecalciferol. Because they have a stop feed effect, there is no transfer on. So once that rat is dead, it won't kill anything else.
Right. Yeah.
If there is a problem, have an open discussion about it with harmonics. It is pets. Pets become the problem because they can eat it, and if they do, there's not really much antidote for it. So we do have to be careful with it, but it is a major tool and the only licensed product to go outdoors.
So another problem with rats, and we noticed this probably 10, 15 years ago when we had a lot of maize. The rats were eating the maize and they were getting immune to the rat poison. Is that correct? Was there an issue with that?
There is K, vitamin K1 and K in maize, and that is the antidote to standard baits. Going back to harmonics, that isn't a problem. Working totally different way of calcifying in the liver and stuff. I don't think there is a problem. I think we look and you see studies done on resistance to rat baits. Yes, it's out there, don't get me wrong, it is. I think there's a bigger problem in, there's 2 resistances. There's resistant to active ingredient and then there's behavioural resistance. These things are pretty clever. They don't actually want to die. And if they've worked out that Fred Smith from there, which is their local according to them, they're Chinese, that's the best place to eat from, and they got ill, they won't go there again. They'll stop eating.
And it actually always makes me laugh. It normally starts probably first week of September, maybe the second week, just as it's getting colder outside. Fast asleep in bed. The wife, what's that? What's that noise upstairs? You can hear the mice scuttling around in the loft. So you're chucked out of bed, you have to go and bang on the roof and all this, that and the other. Get back into bed, oh, here we go. So what do? You go down and get some poison. Go in the loft, put some poison in the loft. Anyway, about 6 weeks later, what's that smell? The rotting upstairs. So you're back in the loft getting, it's a nightmare. Don't get married.
It's a blue job anyway, not a big job.
Yeah, it's definitely a blue job. That's the problem with poisoning. Any form of poisoning, you don't actually know where they're going to die. Generally, they have an ability to die. A big percentage of them will die at home, in the nest or in the burrow, wherever. But there is a percentage that won't. We don't actually know normally where they're living. To take a loft space, they could be living in your Christmas decorations, or they could be living in the clothes you put up there 25 years ago. We don't really know. They could actually be living in the wall, in the insulation. If they die in a place where you can't access them, that's when you get a smell for a few weeks.
I think our industry has always faced challenges ever since the wheel was invented, and is it Jeff Rotel invented the plough or the drill, the drill? So there's always a challenge around the corner, and obviously pests are one of the challenges. But yes, we've got political issues at the moment. We've got this tax that's been introduced. I won't go into all the details, but this is a family farm. In 2 or 3 years, you might not see this scenario again to this extent, which is devastating. And all we're trying to do is produce food. You're trying to help us produce it. We're just trying to feed the people. I mean, 40% is having to be imported. Political unrest around the world, climate change. There's all sorts of issues. And I challenge anybody to show me a more consistently beautiful countryside than that of the British Isles. Anywhere in the world.
I totally get that bananas aren't going to be grown in Warwickshire. They're just not. No. But anything that we should and could grow, we should be growing.
And then just coming on from that, you would have seen that the SFI applications were closed. Literally within 5 minutes, weren't they? But as a community, because we have stood so strong on it and shouted so loud, they have now opened it up for those that have applied or had an application in the process.
Yes,
Daniel Zeichner has said that they have reopened those applications. You've now got, I think it's 8 weeks to finish your application. But that is because we have shouted and actually stood up for ourselves together as a community.
We really do need to protect our food supply in this country, and also protect our young people coming into the industry, because without them, we ain't got an industry.
Yeah.
No, it is worrying. And right now, I don't want to come and work full-time here on the farm. I don't want the pressure, I don't want the tax bill that we're going to get. And there are opportunities, don't get me wrong, but why would I want to come and do this when I can go and get a very cushy 9 to 5 that pays well, that pays a pension, I get paid a salary at the end of the month, it's a fair price. You know, obviously I love this industry, and hopefully one day I will be farming here, but it's not very enticing at the moment.
I mean, I think we started by saying it's a 3rd generation farm. There's no reason why it can't be a 4th generation farm.
There is no reason.
There's an awful lot of mental health problems in the industry. Because you hit on that, please.
Yeah, I think 95% of farmers young farmers 16 to 40 say that it is the biggest issue in our industry. And it is, especially now because of this tax coming in. I think a lot of the older generations were told, for tax purposes, don't pass it on, keep it, in your name. And then suddenly overnight it's changed to, oh, well, actually, because you haven't passed it on, you're going to be lumped with X amount tax bill.
Well, I think there's a problem there, isn't there? Because within the tax system, the accountants and the solicitors, when it was time, there was a death, the family members died, it's time to pass it on. Well, that's fine, that's what happens. Do you need evaluation on this? No, not really, because it's zero rated tax. We'll just think of a figure. But it was always a low figure. It was never the actual value of the farm. What's happened over the last 5 to 10 years is land price and farm price has done that, which doesn't benefit you one bit unless you want to sell it.
Well, I mean,
if you don't want to sell your farm, the land price hasn't helped you one bit. It's just made it that your asset value is more.
Yeah.
But when you come now to pass it down a generation, it becomes a big problem because no rates have been at any level. The government's advice, what they've been given, is technically correct, but it's not correct because it's not a true valuation of what the farmland is and what the values are.
Well, do the sums. I mean, the average price of land around here is, I think, probably between 10 and 14,000 an acre. We, in this area, there's a big scheme. They're trying to get off the ground solar panels on farms, solar farms, and they're now offering landowners in this area £1,200 an acre index linked for 40 years to put a solar farm up. Well, no wonder land prices are going up. What I think they should do is cap subsidies at 400 or 500 acres maximum to stop the big people going out and just hoovering up all the ground, and give the youngsters an opportunity to farm. I mean, you can make a living on 200 acres. I don't care anybody says you can. You can diversify. You can have your fishing pools, your stables, your caravan parks, your farming, all those sort of things. You know, catering. You can do little holiday chalets and all that sort of stuff, and give an opportunity to these youngsters to breathe some life back into the countryside. Let's get the rural schools back, the rural pubs, libraries, and all that sort of stuff. And let's get 10 vets in a parish instead of 2 or 1. Let's get more feed merchants, more machinery dealers. Let's not have a 500 horsepower tractor. Let's have 10 100 horsepower tractors to supply work and jobs. Let's do it.
I think the whole system, though, has been sort of skewed the wrong way, and it has been favourable to put external money into farmland because of zero inheritance tax, which is what it should be. Yes. But what it's done is allowed, dare I say it, the Dysons and the people of the world to chuck industrial money.
Income must be in agriculture. So if Mr. Dyson's earning more farming than he is selling his his vacuum cleaners, then fine, but he's not. You know,
farms shouldn't be banned from being sold. Sometimes they have to. You know, if you weren't interested in farming, full stop, you were the only daughter. Nope, look, Dad, thanks very much for the farm, but I'm just not interested. I'm going to be a physiotherapist, whatever you want to be. That's my life. That's what I want to do. Well, you've got a decision to make. Do I keep farming and my daughter doesn't want it? She might get married to a farmer, so he might want it. But no, she doesn't. Her husband's another physiotherapist, so don't want to do it.
Well, I've told
it could be sold, but you know, there shouldn't be any tax problems from that. That's just what it is, isn't it?
But bearing in mind, I farm with 2 brothers, and they have families, and they're all, you know, we're a big family farm, and most of them have been brought up on the farm, and had an idyllic childhood, as I did. But you know, yes, you can't live in the past. You have to move forward. I understand that, but please just let us produce food. That's all I can say.
That would be as much as possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
There shouldn't really be schemes where you're told not to produce food. There should be schemes to produce food, not to produce food. Yes, we look after the wildlife.
But we have to look after the wildlife and the environment, because if we don't, we won't be able to produce the food. You need the birds and the bees.
Yeah, but if you kill the bees, you won't have anything.
Exactly.
So we actually, all farmers do actually want to look after the environment as much as
we have to,
governments and advisors and people think we don't. They do.
Yeah, we never really on bees, did we? Pest control, they need looking after. Of course they do. But if I would just finish by saying, not that I wanted to finish yet because I'm really enjoying this, but I would just finish by saying in the Second World War, yes, food was short. My father's father was on the war ag, and he actually ran the whole of the Midlands. He was the chairman, and he had to go around getting all the farms to plough up ground, put wheat in. He even got people to plough golf courses and all the rest of it. My father was in the Home Guard, and the planes flew over this house to go and bomb Coventry. And they came twice, and you could see the glow on that awful night. And there was a slogan that read, "Food is a weapon, don't waste it."
Food waste is another. We are very guilty of doing that. Sell-by dates and stuff on food need getting rid of.
Yeah, but it's good for you. They chuck it out, and then the rat side eats it, and then you get a phone call. So come on.
And then you can produce more because they've chucked it all in the bin.
Well, I was up at the loft just before Christmas getting the lights down.
No, don't have us.
And I found a present. I found a present I forgot to give to the kids the year before. They always wanted a new puppy.
She knew that was coming. It's all the time.
My wife's not going to see this, is she?
She might. I'll make sure she sees it, don't worry.
Will you edit that? I'm not going to work out, sorry.